So I wanted to do one more problem for you just to help you with this whole finding the zeros of the function thing. So I'm looking at problem 51 from the assignment that y'all were given. Remember, you only have to do the even, so I'm doing an odd problem for you. But that problem was 2x cubed minus x squared minus 32x plus 16. So to find our possible roots, we are just worried about two numbers. We're worried about 16 and we are worried about 2. So all of our possible roots come from two things. It comes from the factors of 16 divided by the factors of 2. So we have to figure out all of our factors of 16, all of our factors of 2, and then we have to divide them, and that just gives us our possible roots. That gives us the possible rational roots. Those are our options. Well, let's start with our factors of 16. So 16 is divisible by 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16. And of course, all those are the positive and negative form of that. You can divide each of those by the positive or negative form of that number. Okay, and then our next one, all of factors of 2, well, 2 is divisible by positive, negative 1, and positive and negative 2. So now my job is just to actually figure out what those roots are. So I just have to do a lot of division. So I start with 1 that's on top, and I need to divide 1 by two different things. I have to divide 1 by 1, and I have to divide 1 by 2. And the reason I have to do both is because both 1 and 2 are in my denominator. So I have to divide both 1 and 2 I have to divide 1 by both 1 and 2. And then I do the same thing for 2. So I have to divide 2 by 1, and I have to divide 2 by 2. And then I have to do the same thing for 4. I have to divide 4 by 1, and I have to divide 4 by 2. And then I have to divide 8 by 1, and I have to divide 8 by 2. And then lastly, I have to divide 16 by 1, and I have to divide 16 by 2. So now I have divided everything that was on the top, everything that was in the numerator, by everything that's in the denominator. Well, let's actually do the math and let's simplify these. And these are going to give us our possible roots. So 1 divided by 1 is 1. And again, we said earlier, they're all positives and negatives. 1 divided by 2 is still 1/2. 2 divided by 1 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Well, I already had 1 here, so I don't need this one. So I'm going to mark that out because I don't need that. 4 divided by 1 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. But I already had 2 because I had 2 written here, so I don't need that. 8 divided by 1 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4, but I already had 4. I've already written that one, so I can mark that one out again. 16 divided by 1 is 16, and 16 divided by 2 is 8. But I already had 8, so I'm going to mark that out. So my list of possible roots, if I said, hey, what are the possible roots of this function, then you would tell me that they are positive and negative 1, positive and negative 1/2, positive and negative 2, positive and negative 4, positive and negative 8, and positive and negative 16. So those are my possible roots. So for the top half of your assignment, that's all you're doing. That's all you're finding is the possible roots. You're not doing anything else with it. Now, for this problem, it asks you to determine the zeros of the function. So that means that you're finding the actual roots. So now I have to find the actual roots or the actual zeros. So to find the actual ones, I take all these numbers that I've already come up with, and that's where I plug them in and see what happens. So I'm going to make my t-chart, and I'm going to take all these numbers that I have here for my possible roots, and I'm going to write them in this t-chart. So I have a bunch of numbers. But remember, all these numbers that you have in this table, they just came from these possible roots here. So I have 1, positive and negative 1, positive and negative 1/2, 2, 4, 8, and 16. Again, they came from here. So in order to figure out what my actual roots are, to find my actual roots, I plug in the possibles, and I am looking for what equals 0. If it equals 0, it's a root. It's a 0. It's an x-intercept. If it doesn't equal 0, it's not a root. It's not a 0. It's not an x-intercept. So I plug each of these numbers into the calculator, and I see what happens. So I'm going to end up doing a lot of math, but it's, again, not complicated math. Okay, so I went through and I plugged in all of my numbers. I plugged in 1 for x and -1 and 1/2 and -1/2, and these are the results that I got out here on the left side. So I'm looking for anything that gives me 0, because anything that gives me 0 tells me that that number is going to be a root, and that number is going to be a 0, which means that I can actually come up with a factor. So my actual zeros are 1/2, 4, and -4. These are also my x-intercepts. I have 3 x-intercepts of 1/2, 4, and -4. So now all I have to do is turn those into factors. Well, the +4 and -4 easy, because my x-intercepts, +4 becomes x minus 4, and -4 becomes x plus 4. Remember, when we go back from factors to intercepts, they switch signs. And then when you have a fraction, what happens is it's still going to switch signs, so it's going to end up being negative, but your denominator, whatever your denominator is, becomes your coefficient. So it will be 2x and then minus 1. So whatever is on top, your numerator goes at the back end. So my denominator becomes the front. So whatever my denominator is becomes the coefficient of x, and whatever the numerator is becomes the constant in my factorization. So my final answer to this problem is 2x minus 1 times x minus 4 times x plus 4. So for your last 4 problems, 48, 50, 52, and 54, you should end up with something like this. You should go through this entire process. Okay, so you keep going, you do all of this for the last 4 problems. But for the first 6 problems, you stop here. You stop when you get your possible roots. Okay, that's the dividing line. So getting these possible roots is the first part. So again, just reiterating this so there's no confusion. So this is the first problems for 16 through 40. This is all you were doing. For 16 through 40, you were only doing the top part. You're doing the whole thing for problems, every bit of this, for problems 48 through 54.